Are the Texans becoming like a legit franchise again? Are we
Like,
are we
actually properly run, yeah.
are we gonna have to start actually respecting the Titans business savvy once again? I feel almost taken aback because I feel like I had wasted breath. I spent so many minutes of my show, this show, just hating on the Texans for Jack Easterby and the ridiculousness that is the Texans organization. And now I feel like it was all for naught. Like I feel like it's one of those things when you feel like they actually listen to you, and then you get kind of disappointed they listened. You're like, damn, I really liked that the Texans were kind of a shit show.
And we're kinda hoping to see the show keep unfolding. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I got you. Yeah, the Texans, for those who don't know, officially fired their I mean, his title was executive vice president of football operations, but he was a glorified character builder.
yeah.
That's how he made his name in the league, and a chaplain of sorts. Uh, Kevin Clark of The Ringer had a really funny tweet where he was like, "Oh man, they really should have waited to fire their character, builder until they could get the new regime in. Because what are these football characters going to do without their character going into this next week?" With no preparation. Yeah, I mean, he is the probably one of the most disliked executives in football, almost solely because of his lack of qualifications
I
for the
mean,
job. Like, what did he do? No one knows what he did. Actually,
weird. Well, it was the Texans. It shows you more about who the ownership of the Texans are. I mean, they're kind of religious wackos, and they hired a religious wacko who had no football experience to basically to a high up football position. And they're a team that, let's be honest, it's had some pretty bad character the last 2 years.
no kidding.
Um, and
It hasn't worked out too well.
doing some really shady
Yeah.
things. And maybe that's part of it. I mean, who knows? You know what? I do feel good about this because I do think the Texans have shown like exactly what I wanted to see from the Texans so far this year. Like, hey, you're not a dead franchise. Like on the football field, Lovie Smith has improved the team to where it's like they play with some heart. They're feisty. They're better than you expected. And with a lot of the bad teams that we thought going into the year were going to be bottom of the barrel, like 2-win teams, Falcons, Seahawks, Texans, Giants. I mean, these teams have shown up and proven that they actually are a little more feisty and tougher than we gave them credit for. And the Texans, I am in all seriousness excited that they made this firing because it does feel as though the Texans made a lot of bad decisions over the last 3 years with their quarterback, how they handled him, with the hiring of Easterby and where they were going as an organization. And it does seem as though the dust is settled and they're like, okay, there are enough smart people in the room to be like, this is not how we should run a franchise.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was, not that Dave Coley wasn't like an adult in the room, but there does
No,
seem to be an element of respectability once they hired Lovey Smith. He wasn't by any means like a sexy choice or a young offensive mind and a lot of promise, but he did bring a lot of stability and maybe respectability to the Texans
absolutely.
organization. Probably was the good choice given the bridge that they had to kind of cross with the whole Deshaun Watson situation, turning over a new leaf, uh, recreating the organization. This Easterby firing a great step towards actually showing your fans that you're actively trying to move in the right direction. And they got a great young running back in Damian Pierce that seems to be like he'll be a cornerstone for years to come as well. But that brings us here on the Football Lounge to our Week 6 recap. Looking forward to this as we get to talk Bears right out of the gate
Yeah.
with the Thursday night football game. Washington Commanders, a rousing 12-7 victory over your Chicago Bears. I'll throw it to you for the majority. I'm just going to say a quick note. Justin Fields deserved better. He didn't play phenomenal, but he played really well, I think, down the stretch. Gave this team an opportunity to win the game multiple times.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, his team failed him, offensive line, receivers, and the like. I know you got some opinions on this one with the Commanders pulling out the victory at Soldier Field.
Well, the big news too is it is a broken finger for Wentz. So I don't know if they've announced a timetable if he's actually going to be out this week. I kind of hope so because the Packers play the Commanders this week, and I honestly feel like the Packers reeling. Commanders getting a boost from Heineke off the bench could do an upset win over the Packers. I just want to put that out there. I'm kind of knocking on wood for a Taylor Heineke sighting this week. Listen, the Commanders, credit to them. I mean, they found a way to win that game. The Bears, they did. There's a lot of things I liked from the Bears on Thursday night. I liked the aggressive fourth down calls. I liked the fact that they got in the red zone multiple times and put long drives together. And then you see all the deficiencies. You see so many deficiencies across the offensive talent portion. The Chicago Bears, without Cody Whitehair especially, are 3 offensive linemen, like starting legit offensive linemen away from a complete offensive line. They need Whitehair back healthy and then 2 other interior positions. Maybe you put Whitehair back at center and then 2 more guards, or maybe go get the best center in the market and another guard, and you keep Whitehair to guard. And then you ideally, yes, like to go out and get an elite left tackle, but both the young tackles have actually shown me some promise. I'm willing to maybe give them a chance. So you need at least 3 offensive linemen, legitimate, good starting offensive linemen. You need to bring guys in or draft high draft picks. And then I will say this, Dan, I'm officially made up my mind on the 3 position groups: running back, wide receiver, tight end. Wide receiver, Mooney is absolutely an elite 3 and a very good 2 in the league. I mean, Darnell Mooney, when he has an Allen Robinson or someone else opposite him that has to get your respect, he can become an elite weapon, like a really great weapon. Imagine if Darnell Mooney all of a sudden was a 3. You know what I mean? A lot of people talk about DJ Moore, the Panthers fire sale. If you get a DJ Moore in and another receiver, a Moore level or higher, and all of a sudden Mooney is your slot 3 guy, I mean, that all of a sudden this offense becomes completely way more dangerous. So I've decided that Mooney is that. I think that Jones Jr. is all of a sudden now, you drafted him as a Devin Hester return specialist / like gadget guy in offense. You cannot have him return punts anymore. I mean, it is a disaster. He's cost you 2 games. The rookie punt returner has cost you 2 games. It's an embarrassment. You have to fire him from that job and start getting creative. Where's the Deebo Samuel type packages for this kid on offense? That's what you kept selling me on when you draft him as your 3rd round pick, your first offensive weapon. That all the other wide receivers, I mean, absolutely. I never see them again. I will not shed a tear. Pettis of that group showed me a little bit of promise. He had a great catch in the bomb. Should have had another touchdown. It was, maybe you keep Pettis around, but N'Keal Harry, I do think he deserves every shot at snap when he's finally healthy, because the other wide receivers have shown nothing for me to say I want to see more from them. Yeah, and then the tight end position group, Dan, I firmly believe the Chicago Bears should offer Cole Kmet right now a 10-year deal for $30 million for 10 years. I mean, like, you're going to be you're going to be our number 2 tight end / back blocking tight end for the next decade. We want you a part of the franchise. You're a great blocker. You're a physical presence. You can use you in the red zone, but he is not what you need to have an explosive offense in the 2022-2023 NFL. The explosive offenses in the modern NFL have elite tight ends who stretch the field, can separate from linebackers who are absolute threats. Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, Kittle, Kyle Pitts. These guys are receiving threats that dominate the middle of the field. Cole Kmet is not proving that. But what Cole Kmet has proven is the dude is a legit blocking tight end. Some gadget fun plays, dump out. He can get you a first down, and he's in a red zone threat. He's so big and physical. But the Bears offensively right now, for me to properly judge Justin Fields, are 2 wide receivers, a dominant tight end, and 3 offensive linemen away. So if you can at least fill like 3 or 4 of those holes to start next season, that would be great. And on the defensive side, they need an elite pass rusher. I really love the back end of the defense. I thought the defense played great. I think they're actually really coached well. I think these young players, that young secondary is gelling. So there's a lot of promise on the defensive end. They just need an elite pass rusher. I would say this for my Bears on a kind of a final note. Justin Fields will be the starting quarterback next year. And he will have all of next year to prove that he is the guy. He will get his third year. I really, really need Ryan Poles, just for my own sanity, and I think the rest of the sanity of the fan base, to start making moves geared towards the success of Justin Fields next year, which means go out and maybe overpay for DJ Moore. Trade Quinn right now for as many picks as you can get. The Bears are going to need picks to package to go trade for starting players in the NFL, and then they're going to need those picks also to move up in the draft position. The Bears need multiple first, multiple second round type of talent, and they need to start getting aggressive towards giving this kid a chance, because right now it's just ugly. Because you're absolutely right, he is fighting, scrapping tooth and nail. He's not a perfect player, and he has not shown that he can carry the team yet. None of these second-year quarterbacks really have, so I'm kind of taking that as a grain of salt as well. He will be your starting quarterback next year unless a tragic injury happens. Knock on all the wood. I don't want it to happen. And so you got to start trying to find the way to build now, because the Bears lost that game because they do not have enough talent to win that game, Dan. The defense is good enough to keep them in games against bad teams, but they do not have enough talent to win the game. I thought the coaching, the game plan, all that stuff was okay. I'd like to see a little bit more commitment to the run. David Montgomery is a real weapon. Him and Khalil Herbert, I feel great about them. I think you should sign Montgomery to keep him around. But otherwise, it was another national TV nightmare for me as a Bears fan.
$115 million did the Bears have going into next season. That is the most in the NFL. So maybe they could start to address some things. I'd like to think maybe they'd like to have someone like James Daniels along that offense.
Yeah,
right
you
now
think?
Like
Can I make a last point on that? The fact that you say that's a great point, $115 million. Here's the thing, though. Look at what teams right now are doing, like the Giants. They're a bad team that's going to, overall, they're not going to win a Super Bowl, right? They may now sneak into the playoffs. But what are they showing you? If I'm a free agent now and I get offered a little bit more money from the Bears versus the Giants, why the hell would you not want to go play for Brian Daboll in that franchise that seems to have found a spark? Winning is still really important. Now, you don't want to win too much because the Bears need good draft picks. The Bears need a top 10 draft pick, right? So you don't want to overwin, but you've got to show the culture is there and the culture is aggressive towards fixing it. Because the Panthers, so some other teams right now that are so kind of just in the muck, you don't all of a sudden want to become in the muck if you're the Bears, because that can scare off free agents. And even though you have a lot of money, you can't overpay and you can't get yourself stuck in bad contracts, because Chicago seems to do that a lot.
Yeah, no, it's very true. It is hard to evaluate Justin Fields right now. Will say I'd like to see more from the pocket. Even with in some of the duress, he is bailing a little bit too quickly on.
Agreed.
It's probably ghosts of sacks past that are in his head there. But I mean, man, he made some amazing plays with his legs, so that was encouraging to see for sure.
He's a fighter.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. A guy battles. Steelers at home against the Buccaneers. What a crazy upset this was.
Can't wait to hear your thoughts on this.
I mean, it is fascinating. So the Steelers win 20-18 over Tom Brady and a relatively healthy Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that had been injured for much of the season. So it was seeming like this was set up perfectly because the Steelers were without 4 starting defensive backs, including all-pro safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, of course, TJ Watt also not there. And so this was shaping up to be a classic Tom Brady shredding up the Steelers, which he has done many, many years past. I think I've seen my Steelers beat him twice over the years. So, yeah, not a great track record. Steelers defense played phenomenal in this one, especially in the red zone. I believe they were 1 for 4 in the red zone were the Buccaneers. So that just tells you all you need to know about kind of their success level as things tightened up there late. And Kenny Pickett gets a concussion in this game. That was brutal. I hate to see that for him. Just starting to, get comfortable perhaps and start to develop a little bit momentum. He's probably going to be out next week. But Mitch Trubisky, his best game of the season, Chase Claypool's best game of the season. Just a lot of guys really stepping up in this game. So I was incredibly impressed with the overall team effort. To me, Mark, this is why I never get on the fire Mike Tomlin bandwagon. This was
You can't.
100% a Mike Tomlin win.
I agree.
And how many there's a handful of coaches in the league that could have done what happened this past week. Now, in the scheme of things, at the end of the year, if they're 5-12, does this win mean that much? Probably not. But it's the fact that Tomlin, if you have a head coach that refuses to quit, it's much like Miami with Brian Flores. It's like, do you really want someone that's like not all in all the time? Like, these guys are in it to win every week. And, to get shellacked, the worst loss in Steelers history against the Bills last week, 38-3, to come back and beat what we all thought was a Super Bowl contender. I think that says a lot about Tomlin and just his ability, especially with DBs, man. Like, you can disguise certain positions. You're down at tight end. All right, well, we're gonna run a little bit more power, or zone to one side, or find a way to not show that weakness. You can't disguise not having DBs, and somehow they were able to pull it out with practice squad players. Super excited. I was really happy to see what Mitch did, because not only the way he handled it in game, but the way he handled it after game. The guy is just a good teammate. We've talked about it. He knew this was Kenny's team at that point when the passing of the torch came up, but then he comes in and he was prepared and ready. He wasn't a sour grapes type of backup. He came in, he played with a reckless abandon. That's when Mitch is good, is when he's not looking over his shoulder all the time, right? It felt like that a lot in Chicago. He felt the pressure, it seemed. And to start his career here with the Steelers, seemed to feel the pressure of the rookie quarterback behind him, not, first year in a new offense type of deal. This, he kind of just threw caution to the wind, converted 4 third downs on the final 2 drives, had the go-ahead touchdown, which was the first wide receiver touchdown by the Steelers all year, by the way. And he played great. So it was a total, like, literally the most team win of all team wins you could get here. And on the flip side, I'd be concerned if I was the Bucs. I mean, they should have absolutely shredded this team. I don't know how much the Tom Brady going to Robert Kraft's wedding, on Friday played into it. It's certainly not good optics, especially when he missed so much time with the team this past year. Shows up late on Saturday, takes his own jet, and then reams his offensive line on the sidelines. Optic wise, didn't look great. I don't know how much that played into it, but I do know it seems that something's out of sync here with the Bucs offense.
Definitely out of sync. I agree 100%. It's a Mike Tomlin win. Happy for Mitch. It's exactly why he'll have a career for the next decade in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly.
And for the Bucs, I'm not going to push the panic button, because the Bucs still have the easiest route to a playoff spot in the NFC. I know if Falcons are feisty, we'll talk about them, I'm sure, here soon.
They don't play a team above 500 currently the rest of the way.
They just they have a very, very easy division to get through. So does it mean the Bucs will be in the Super Bowl? I don't know. I also just feel a lot like, with Tom Brady, it's about just making sure he has a chance. Is he have a ticket into the big dance? So that's the important thing. And again, the optics on Brady, and then yelling and being at the wedding, I don't love it either, but I'm not going to panic and bail on Brady. Now, if they lose to the Panthers next week, that's when we can really start having some conversations about what the hell's going on with Tom and the Bucs, for sure.
Yeah, and just a final point to put a bow on it. The Steelers are half a game out of the division. Like,
crazy.
The division has been pretty bad.
So they have.
The Ravens have not looked great. Bengals put on a show. We'll get to that this week. But the Browns' defense is terrible. This division could be up for grabs this early on, especially. So it's interesting to see. They got the Miami Dolphins on deck. Not an easy task. probably with Tua returning.
Going
Falcons
back.
at home, 2-touchdown win over the San Francisco 49ers. I again ask for like the fourth straight week. Who is good in the NFL? Because I don't know. Outside of the Bills and the Chiefs and the Eagles, I am struggling to find out who is consistently good in this league right now. And yeah, the 49ers get beat pretty handily. The Falcons ran the ball extremely well, very effective. And, they finally got a touchdown to Kyle Pitts, starting to utilize their weapons a little bit more there. But really, at the end of the day, this was just, some sloppy play from the 49ers here. Never really putting anything consistent on tape. 3 quarters were shut out. And the Falcons, like you mentioned earlier, they're just a tough out. Arthur Smith is kind of having the Dan Campbell effect on the Falcons here.
Absolutely.
They're fighting, and they may not have their franchise quarterback, but Mariota's been scrappy, running the ball well. I think teams are struggling to figure out like really how to defend the Falcons because they haven't really like shown you exactly who they are. And right now, I think they're taking a lot of teams by surprise. They're at 500. Certainly didn't expect that.
Arthur Smith, I said it before the season. The Falcons feel like they have their coach, they just don't have their quarterback. So he is proving once again, a lot like Brian Dable is proving, is that coaching is really important. Culture setting is really important, and they both seem to be really good at doing that for teams that were, picked by me and others to be kind of bottom of the basement teams. Congrats to Marcus Mariota. Again, he is doing, everything he needs to do to once again say, I should be in this league another 10 years. I said it like 2 years ago, I think, and I stand by it patly. If I was Marcus Mariota's agent, I would be nonstop just hounding like the Chiefs and be like, I should be Patrick Mahomes' backup for the next 10 years. Like, get rid of Chad Henne and just give me a 10-year, $40 million contract to be Patrick Mahomes' backup for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? Just all guaranteed, space out over 10 years, and go live a great life in Kansas City. You might have to get in a couple times, every other year, or you tweak an ankle or pulls a hamstring or something, or he gets a concussion. But live a good life, and or maybe Mitch will do it. Someone's got to take that job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like Buffalo should get Mitch back or something in that way, where just like when you have a great franchise quarterback, having the best or one of the best backups in the league, I think is really, really important. And too often you see these teams go with the Chad Henne's or the, you know what I mean, or the what's his name who's backing up.
Like Chase Davis.
It was
Chase Daniel. I meant.
Yeah, now I can't think of his name. The guy who's he's with Buffalo. He's back up with Buffalo now. He had
Taylor.
No, he had the Stefon Diggs touchdown Minnesota Miracle.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum. Thank you. So like I just think, I mean, those are like the backup jobs you want, and those are like, because if you're, I don't know, I don't need to go on this rant right now. I'll just say this: I very pumped for Atlanta, and you're absolutely right. The Niners are a up and down team, but the Niners, I saw a stat, they're the second most injured team in the NFL right now. Like, I mean, and there's something to that. The Niners always seem very injured. I don't know what that is.
They probably practice really hard. I mean, Kyle Shanahan runs a physical ship over there.
I just think that you got to change something up, because you're killing yourselves. Now, again, no one's running away in the NFC West, so I'm not panicking on the Niners yet. But the Niners are with the NFC East teams all winning a bunch of games. You only have seven playoff spots. That means 3 wildcard spots. All of a sudden, 2 of them look like they could go to the NFC East based on a number of wins. All of a sudden, if you're out there in the West, you're out there in the North. You know what I mean? You got to start saying to yourself, bleep, we're running out of playoff spots. You know what I mean? We didn't expect any of the NFC South teams but the Bucs. No one expected anyone but maybe the Eagles, or maybe the Eagles and Cowboys in the East. And now all of a sudden it looks like you might have 3 playoff teams out of the East. That NFC West, you got to start winning games, and winning games fast. You can't keep putting off wins, and especially against a team that overall you should still probably beat. They are rebuilding. You are, even though you're injured, you are a playoff caliber team at this point in time. So tough loss for the Falcons, and I mean for the Niners in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, that's a good point about the wild card too. Is it's even though they expanded it, the races seem to be even tighter as we go into it. And
Well,
that's, you really only have that one spot if you got a top heavy division somewhere, which the East is appearing to be at this point in time. Then you're all fighting for scraps.
yeah, I know. I mean, I know the Cowboys are a 2-loss team, but now they're going to get Dak back, and I think we all think, oh, the Cowboys were going to be out of it because Cooper rushed with them. They were going to lose 3 or 4 games. They've won those 3 or 4 games, and so the Cowboys have a nice leg up, for Dak to say, oh, can the Cowboys get 6 wins out of their next, how many games left? 11 games. Can they go 6-5? Wants to say the Cowboys can't go 6-5 now and get to 10 wins. So if you're the Niners, if you're the Cardinals, the Rams, I mean, those 3 teams, I mean, the Seahawks got to throw them in there, I guess, now too, because the upset win. You got to start counting wins and saying, crap, like we only got 11 games left here now. We are, after week 6 gets going here, you've got Packers. I mean, the Packers now have got to start saying to themselves, oh, bleep, we got to start finding wins here on the schedule because you're losing to teams that you had as checked off W's 2 months ago before the season started.
Yeah, urgency is paramount at this point in time for sure. Meanwhile, 4 teams are on the bye, by the way, the Lions, the Raiders, Titans, and the Houston Texans. We'll get to the Patriots at the Browns now, and it's Bailey Zappi putting on a show. 38-15 win over the Browns, the rookie out of Western Kentucky, putting up 300 yards and 2 scores. That is now a 100 passer rating for Bailey Zappi each of the last 3 games. This is fascinating. He is the first quarterback, or the only quarterback this season to have over a 100 passer rating in each of the last 3 weeks. And he's the first rookie in the Super Bowl era to have over a 100 passer rating in his first 2 starts, which have come the last 2 weeks as well. Might have a quarterback controversy brewing here in New England. Mac Jones still out with injury, and Bailey Zappi has been performing well. Team is now 3-3 after it was looking very bleak there in New England.
Why is it that the Patriots don't have an offensive coordinator who's an offensive coach?
I know. Yeah.
They can have a rookie quarterback come in and do that. And my team has a second-year quarterback who's a high drafted pick, and we can't get anywhere close to that. It's just it's maddening. I'll just say this. I think a great win for the Patriots, kind of get themselves back in this race here now, right? The AFC wildcard. We just talked about the NFC. AFC wildcard spots starting to really get tight, with the North all basically even, and the West not as dominant as we thought the West was going to be. The Patriots now right back in the thick of things to reclaim a playoff spot for the second year in a row. Listen, quarterback controversy, if there's any team that can handle it, it's going to be New England, and because Bill's not going to let it become a thing. He's going to be he's going to take care of business. And Bailey Zappi's performed well. Again, how much is it? We don't have tape on him. He did it against the Lions and the Browns, 2 of the worst defenses in the NFL. They were missing their star cornerback with the Browns. So I will take a flyer, but I'll just say right now, the Browns are looking more like I predicted the Browns to be, just kind of a mess without Watson. They're injured right now and offensively pretty inept. You got to rely more on Chubb. I would just give him 60 carries a game. And for the Patriots, very interesting to see in another 2 or 3 weeks. My Bears play the Patriots on Monday night. What does it look like? Can they keep winning games? I think as long as they're winning, Bailey Zappi is going to be the starting quarterback. That's my prediction. I don't see them going back to Mac Jones unless he has a Cooper Rush type loss. You know what I mean? A 3 interception. So maybe the Bears can do that for Mac Jones. Maybe Mac Jones will be rooting for the Bears. Eddie Jackson, Alabama guy, to go in there and pick off Bailey Zappi on Monday night a week from tonight, and make some plays to get his job back
and put that to rest. Yeah, the Browns defense, by the way, has looked really bad. I mean, even with some of the injuries they've had, it has looked terrible. That's not something I think really is going to get fixed with the arrival of Deshaun Watson, but certainly their offense will take a big leap once that comes. But that's in week 11. And really, I mean, can they get to like 5-6 by that point? Well, they're 2-4 now. So that's looking even less likely at this point. The Browns need to get some wins here before Deshaun Watson returns. Otherwise, this is kind of a lost season there in Cleveland. Jets go on the road at the Packers, and you kind of foreshadowed it a
What
little
a
bit.
win.
Green Bay, that offense looking all sorts of out of sync. This is something that did surprise me. I thought the departure of Devontae Adams was going to be significant, but not to the extent to where Aaron Rodgers wasn't still Aaron Rodgers, and where the team can't even get their run game going, which is
No,
super
that's the
surprising
worst part,
given
Dan.
the two backs they have in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, two of the best, 1-2 punches in the league. Though they can't get these guys going consistently, can't put up points. Meanwhile, the Jets are just kind of flying high on, the non-lofty expectations that were put on them. I mean, they were supposed to be once again the basement of the league. They're 4-2. Zach Wilson's playing perfectly fine. Breece Hall, rookie running back, has been dominant. He goes for 116 and a touchdown. Are you pressing the panic button on Green Bay here, given Aaron Rodgers' struggles recently and the fact that they can't find any momentum offensively at all?
Aaron Rodgers has less passing yards than Geno Smith, less passing touchdowns than Jared Goff, even though the Lions just had a bye week this week. I mean, he is your two-time back-to-back MVP, and he's playing like poop right now. And we've said it before, this Packers team is, when you invest $50 million per year in your quarterback, you need him to be your lifeboat for everyone. You need him to be your beacon, your lighthouse in the dark. Follow me, come with me. My children. I'm getting Christ-like almost with my imagery, but that's what he needs.
Analogies.
That's what he needs to be, and he is Mr. Throw it in the ground, mopey. And did you hear his post-game comments basically saying, "Listen, I see it. No one works harder than Matt LaFleur and the staff." He never talks about himself. Like, he's like, no one works harder than those guys. So if something's not working, it's not because they're not working hard. They're working hard. I don't, but something's not working. Well, maybe it's you, Aaron, like not actually giving enough of a shit. I would love to see Aaron Rodgers yell at his teammates the way Tom Brady does. He's just not going to do it. You miss a ball and he just like, all right. He never went back to Tunyon after that first almost pick six at the beginning of the game. Aaron Jones is non-existent in the game plan. I don't understand that at all. And I think we legitimately have to start saying, Colin Cowherd's been on this for weeks, and I give him credit for it. What's up with Matt LaFleur? Like, Matt LaFleur, we know, NFC Championship game. We put him on this higher echelon of young coaches, but what are the Packers doing well right now? Not much. For the Jets, what a great quality win. The Jets, again, Zach Wilson didn't play brilliant, but in bad conditions, he ran their offense. They had an identity, and that's the kind of offense that's going to work for Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson's going to be a superstar in this league, you want him to be complementary with play action when he can use his mobility and accuracy and lively arm, as opposed to Zach Wilson drop back shotgun 38 times a game. So I think they're beginning to figure out, like, this is what this offense needs to look like with Breece Hall, this good offensive line. And so that defensive line for the Jets showed up. Packers are a little beat up, but again, you have the two-time back-to-back MVP. I think he's a four-time MVP or back-to-back, whatever he is now. And he's playing like crap. And to me, the buck stops with Aaron Rodgers, not even with LaFleur. And yet all Aaron wants to do is say, basically blame the coaches, being like, listen, something's not working. It's not that they're not working hard. I see them working hard. Trust me, I'm watching them work hard. But clearly something's not working. I don't know what it is, because they're working really hard. And Aaron's very smart and he loves his innuendos. Read through the lines. He's basically saying, yeah, they're spending way too much time and working really hard on stuff that sucks. Like, this doesn't work. So, like read between the lines. It's basically what Aaron Rodgers is trying to say.
He's more about identifying problems than being a part of the solution.
They're in real trouble. The Packers are in trouble because the Vikings aren't going anywhere, it looks like. They
got a two-game lead now.
And like I said, you're running out of playoff spots. You know what I mean? Tom's lucky. No one in his division is going to run away from him. Aaron cannot say that. The Minnesota can absolutely pull away in this division. They already have the head-to-head matchup lead on them. So it's Packers fans pushing the panic button. I wouldn't blame them.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Jaguars go on the road at the Colts. This was a big time matchup. I was really looking forward to this one. Man, Trevor Lawrence had the game of the year for him. Probably the best game of his career outside of the other game against the Colts at the end of last season. But Trevor accounts for 3 total touchdowns in this one. Brings them to a 27-26 lead with 3 minutes to go, and let Matt Ryan drive down. I mean, the Jaguars defense really blew this game in my view. ETN actually had his like breakout game, if you will, was really explosive. But the Colts, who had looked dead in the water the past few weeks, they came alive in this game too. So it's like
3-2-1
putting it together at the same time. The Colts 3-2-1 after looking as bad as they did. They are still very much in the driver's seat to win this division. Jaguars show good signs. They lose a tough one, 34-27. I still think Trevor Lawrence is well on his trajectory to be having a really good sophomore season. And we're seeing those improvements week to week. Finally, though, we saw the Colts actually have some remote life offensively. And this is what I anticipated the Colts being coming into the year. It's just taken over a month to get there.
It has, and kudos to Frank Reich and that coaching staff because they're on the hot seat. I mean, I was talking about it. Everyone was talking about, listen, if they lose this game and go 0-2 to the Jags, start the season, like you might have to fire someone. Like, I mean, it's bad. Now, if you and on the flip side for the Jags fans, if you tell them you split with the Colts this year and you know what I mean, and you're showing feisty and Trevor Lawrence is playing like that, Jags fans should be excited right now. A young defense. You want to see them not be able to blow a game, but that's what Matt Ryan does. Matt Ryan, we just talked about his last game-winning drive. Like, Matt Ryan is like 6 all-time in game-winning drives. This is what he does. And so very, very interesting game that is not getting a lot of national discussion, but huge for the Colts to win because, again, we're talking about these AFC wildcard matchups already. Titans seem like they kind of got it rolling. They're getting healthy at the bye. Colts all of a sudden back above 500. If these two teams can start stacking up some wins, both their schedules get a little easier during some stretches here. All of a sudden, you're taking away wild card spots from those AFC North teams. You know what I mean? Now the Patriots are coming on, and things are getting tight, especially when you look at the AFC West. Also, you got a lot of big name quarterbacks and teams kind of the outside looking in. The Ravens, other teams like that, they got to start feeling like they're sweating here a little bit.
Definitely a little bit for sure. Feeling the pressure. And, we're only 6 games in, but to your point, this is when you start to see the bigger picture here. A lot can happen, but you need to start thinking about how, your season's going to go. And you got to get, some of these wins, what we talk about all the time on the show, like the games you're supposed to win, you got to win, especially at this point of the season here, because it is getting that much tighter. The Vikings go on the road at the Dolphins in a game that was set up for them to win, certainly with Tua Tagovailoa out. Skylar Thompson getting the start over Teddy Bridgewater, but he gets hurt and Bridgewater ends up coming in. But at the end of the day, it's the Vikings that win 24-16. They are now 5-1 on the season. Dalvin Cook, his typical self in this one. Nothing overly spectacular on either side, but they just eked out a relatively close game, although really it was, the fourth quarter that the Dolphins started to show some life. So I guess it wasn't close throughout. It just got close at the end. But the Vikings are able to pull out the win by 8. And now they are atop the NFC North. So, so far, my prediction on the Vikings, I think, is coming to fruition so far through 6 games that they are now at the top of the division.
Yeah, I'll start with the Vikings as well. I mean, they're proving me wrong so far this year, and they're catching some breaks, but they're taking advantage of those breaks. And offensively, at times, the Vikings can be very scary. I mean, especially when Dalvin Cook gets going, it's almost an impossible offense to stop. Justin Jefferson is just so talented. I will say, I still don't worry about the Vikings come playoff time. I'm not going to sweat on it at all about them making a deep run. I just don't. Kirk Cousins has to prove that to me. I need to see Kirk Cousins in an NFC Championship game to believe he could ever make it to an NFC Championship game. But Vikings fans are allowed to feel good and be celebrating in my face a little bit this morning. And for the Dolphins, listen, Teddy Bridgewater came in and had a hell of a game coming off the bench. Teddy Bridgewater, like what you just said, Marcus Mariota and Mitch Trubisky, he needs to just go to the Dolphins and say, I will sign right now an 8-year, $40 million contract to stay with you. Even if Tua is not the guy, I can be your bridge till you find the next guy. Like, just keep me here, and I'll be the backup to the next guy even when you find him. Like, certain teams, like, don't let a guy like Teddy Bridgewater walk out of your building. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and maybe the Steelers
there too.
Maybe the Steelers do that with Mitch. Like, don't let guys like that walk out of your building. Atlanta should do that with Marcus Mariota. Be like, Marcus, we're going to still draft a guy, but we're going to sign you to a 5-year contract. Like, don't let those guys walk out of your building. And now maybe they won't sign those contracts because they're going to say, we want to try to start somewhere else. I think that's stupid. I would advise them all to just secure some bag and should prove your worth. I mean, these guys have a lot of worth. Teddy Bridgewater shown his worth. Dolphins 3-0, 3-3. I'm not panicking on the Dolphins though yet. I think Tua comes back. Their schedule is still very workable. The Dolphins, I can't remember if I had them in or just missing the playoffs. I think I had them just missing. Or maybe just in. One of the two, but they're still on track for that. I'm not panicking if I'm a Dolphins fan right now, unless when Tua comes back, he's just not the same and there's some long-term effects. That could be scary, but we'll see next week.
The Bengals on the road at the Saints. Didn't anticipate this one being close, but it really kind of felt like the Bengals were in control for much of this game. It just seemed like the offensive firepower that they had was a little bit too much for New Orleans to handle. And, Saints again with Andy Dalton under center, without Chris Olave, without, I don't believe Michael Thomas played in this game either. So, they were without some key pieces, but the Bengals offense finally being the Bengals offense that we saw flashes of and saw for the majority of the end of the last season on the way to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase being his, breakout, superstar self with 7 catches, 132 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. And the Bengals get back to 500. So after a sluggish start, after the opening season loss to Pittsburgh, Bengals are coming back and kind of showing who they are at the end of the day. A formidable opponent, but there are still certainly a lot of holes here. I don't think any team in the AFC North is particularly convincing, but the Bengals are still, gonna be a team that come season's end could put up, 40 points on you on any given day.
I feel better about the Bengals right now than I do any other team in the AFC North, even though they just lost to the Ravens last week. And that's because while I do love the Ravens, they have now blown 3 big leads. We'll talk about that when they get to the Ravens. I haven't seen, like, the Bengals have lost games, but they haven't lost the way the Ravens have. You know what I mean? And for the Bengals to come back after a big loss, finally get Jamar Chase working again, that Joe Burrow magic in the Superdome, smoking the cigars, wearing the Jamar Chase championship jersey. I think if the Bengals can build off this, I think that'd be huge for them. They have a tough schedule. And then when you go to a Super Bowl, your schedule is always tough the next year. But I feel good about the Bengals. For the Saints, I don't know. I mean, again, I predicted them to be about this. And I still think they're maybe more competitive with Andy right now than with Jameis. But Andy's kind of, I think Andy personally is, again, showing why he maybe deserves that Teddy Bridgewater type contract as well. He's a little older, so maybe don't want to do the 8 years. He's going to do a 4 or 5 year deal. But he's a guy, you know what I mean? Like he can keep you afloat. But the Saints right now, I just think are just so leaderless. They don't have an identity and a driving force right now. And to lose a game like that at home when it's tight and your defense doesn't, Saints defense has a bunch of talent. It just seems they're just missing something. They don't have a soul or something. It just doesn't seem like the Saints. And that'll happen when your head coach of 16 years or whatever retires, who had such an identity, and your quarterback retired 2 years ago. The Saints definitely feel like they just almost need a complete reset. But maybe I'm bailing on New Orleans too early. I don't know.
I'll agree. They do feel like there are a lot of individual pieces, a lot of talented guys on that roster. They don't seem to be playing in sync all the time together, but
I'll take that back.
That'll shape up.
I'll take it back too. I do think Jameis still, when healthy, probably gives them the best chance to win games because he'll make more mistakes. He'll make more mistakes, but they have such big play wide receivers. You just need to get Jameis back healthy from his broken back and whip the ball around.
The New York Football Giants are 5-1.
Oh,
I don't
I
know
know.
what we can make of the Giants here.
Brian
I mean,
Dable?
Brian Dable is doing some incredible work there in New York to be able to get them to where they're at. They beat the Ravens, and a game that kind of went back and forth there in the second half, especially Ravens driving and to get the strip sack fumble to kind of seal the game. Um, the Giants closed, which they often don't do, and the Giants asserted their dominance in a lot of ways in this game. They've unleashed Saquon Barkley. Brian Daboll has shown he knows how to use them, and as we've talked about in recent weeks, he is finding ways to properly manage and utilize a Daniel Jones-led team, given what he's got, and he has them at 5-1. I mean, I'm fully convinced that they made the right hire there, and I mean, it's blowing my mind. It's crazy, that the Eagles are what they are, and they still have the Giants breathing down their neck with one game behind them for the division lead. And we're talking about the Eagles may be the best team in football. Kind of crazy right now that the Giants are where they're at.
Brian Dable has my vote for coach of the year as of right now.
Gotta
Absolutely. Now, let's be honest. The Ravens blew that game. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I mean, absolute boneheaded play, backed up late in the fourth. Why you throw that ball, why you drift back the way you do. I mean, horrendous play to throw that interception to then give the Giants a chance to take the lead. And so, but the Giants, to their credit, put themselves, they don't give up, they don't quit. Daboll is a guy. The dudes in the locker room seem to love him. And again, I'll just say this. For both New York teams, these winning like this is important. Because even if both teams flail out and don't make the playoffs, they've already both built up enough goodwill. Their goal is to set that groundwork for what are the next couple of years of football in New York going to look like. Saleh and the Jets have things rolling. They feel like they have an identity. And now if Daboll can keep this idea rolling of like, hey, guys, you're going to come, you're going to have fun, we're going to play hard, we're going to play fast, we're going to take advantage of our talent. If you're a stud wide receiver, a great left tackle, an edge rusher who wants a home next year, why wouldn't you start considering playing for a team like that in a city like New York? So big win for them. I mean, massive win for them. And for the Ravens, listen, I think the Ravens are a better team than the Giants. I think the Ravens are really missing Wink Martindale, and they are struggling defensively to close out games. And I don't know what it is. If you have Lamar Jackson, you should be able to close out every game. If you get a lead, it should be over with Lamar Jackson. And that's what the Ravens were known for 3 years ago, 2 years ago. The narrative was, well, Lamar can't play from behind. He could always win from ahead. Now that it's the opposite. It's like Lamar can get you back into a game, but as soon as you have a lead, they can't figure it out. So I don't know what's going on offensively, that they can't run the ball and just close out these games. And defensively, they just are like a leaky bleeping faucet after they get the lead. The Baltimore's got some real issues, and it's frustrating because they show these signs. They get these big leads. You're like, yep, that's the Ravens. No one can do it like they can. 3 weeks ago, we both said Lamar Jackson, MVP candidate. They're nowhere near that anymore. I mean, they just blown too many leads, and he's looked real sloppy in some of the blown leads.
The Panthers on the road. We didn't get to talk about this since we took last week off, so we'll touch on the fire sale.
Yeah, Arrested Development.
I love the reference, Tobias. Yes, they're having a fire sale.
Yeah. Did I make the fire too real?
Matt Rule getting the axe by David Tepper mid-season here. A bizarre timing, I think, overall. I think that's what a lot of people were curious. Like, what convinced you more so of the last 4 or 5 weeks that wasn't evident, in the previous 2 seasons? But nonetheless, he gets let go. And then this week, Robbie Anderson causing a bunch of fuss, talking during the week, then gets into the game and he's fighting with his wide receivers coach on the sidelines. Interim head coach Steve Wilks sends him packing at the half or in the second half. And then now we get the reports today that the Cardinals have traded for Robbie Anderson. So
A
A lot
mid-report
happening.
Cardinals might be without Hollywood Brown the rest of the year.
It's seeming like that's going to be an increasingly a problematic issue there with Hollywood Brown for sure. It kind of escalated from the initial injury. We'll see what happens with that, but nonetheless, Cardinals have their own issues they need to sort out. But Panthers, I don't know if it's a fire sale. I mean, they got rid of Rule, and Robbie Anderson was seeming to be a problem that they had to get rid of. But we're also hearing that they're hearing about talks for CMC. What do you make of this one? The Rams get a convincing 24-10 win over them. Just seemed like trouble was brewing. They were set up to lose this game. PJ Walker in at quarterback, Baker Mayfield injured, interim coach. It's chaos right now in Charlotte.
Well, let me start by congratulating the Rams. I mean, you never want to play a team that has the interim coach on week 1, right? They get the bump and you're reeling. So the Rams, a quiet victory for them. Like, no one's really bumping up the Rams today, but they're not lumped in with the Niners, the Bucks, the Packers of like, what the hell's going on in the NFC? A nice, quiet win for them. That's got to feel good. A little quiet in the building and they can just trade Cam Akers and get on with their lives. So good win for the Rams. But for the Panthers, I would say this: no better time to fire sale. Look at around the NFL right now. You can put yourself in poised position for the number 1 overall pick. You can. The Seahawks are better than you thought they were. The Giants are better than you thought they were. The Jags, the Texans, the Falcons, all feistier than we thought they would be. You can be in the running for the number 1 overall pick. And the Carolina Panthers need a reset like that. You could attract a great head coach because you could say, look at the quarterbacks. You want CJ Stroud? You want Bryce Young? Pick your guy. We got the number 1 overall pick. Start selling. I would trade McCaffrey now too. If you can get a first rounder or anything close to that, I would do it. This Panthers team reset. No point in not trying that. And I think that the timing with Rule makes sense in a lot of ways, because if Rule gets a college job, then Tepper has to pay him a lot less.
Right.
If Rule does not work for the next 4 years, he collects on that, what is it? Ridiculous, like $40 million.
$40 million that he's owed. Yeah.
So Matt Rule, I think, is the type of guy that also wants to save his reputation. And I think Matt Rule is seeing the landscape of certain jobs opening or possibly opening and going, let's get to work on this. So I think it was more of a mutual thing too. Listen, things aren't going well. You want to fire me? I know I don't want to be here anymore. It's just not going to work. Let me get out of here and we'll figure it out. And I bet there was some sort of handshake agreement that Rule wasn't going to sit on his ass for the next 4 years. He's going to take a job, and it's not going to be necessarily the buyout that he owes, for getting fired. But if I were the Panthers and I was a fan of the Panthers, I would 100% encourage the fire sale, particularly look at trading DJ Moore to Chicago. I just think that would be, if I was a Panthers fan, I'd want that.
Of course. That'd be wonderful. Yeah. I was initially against them shopping McCaffrey because I am generally against teams getting rid of their best players. But then after a little bit of thought and stuff, I do think it's the right move. I don't think they should give him away for a discount.
No.
I think they should demand a first and a third or something like that in return, maybe, a mid-level player or something like that. But I do think, look, they're not going to be realistically in the hunt for anything for maybe a few seasons. And by that point, an already, injury history Christian McCaffrey is going to be 28, 29 at that point. Certainly at the end of his prime, if not on the back end of his career in general. That just doesn't seem like it's going to shape up well.
The Bills were already reportedly interested. That makes sense.
That would be a great place for him.
I know they don't have picks next year. I don't even know if they have picks the year after, but listen, what if the Rams, you take Cam Akers and we'll give you whatever future first round picks you want. It's going to be years in advance, but I'm just saying, I think the Rams.
The Rams would certainly be willing to do it.
The Rams would be a great fit. It'd be a great fit.
The Eagles have a shit ton of picks next year. And look, Miles Sanders is fine, but you add Christian McCaffrey to the Eagles, that's an insane offense.
Yeah, it's true.
Right there.
I would. That could be interesting
because
Miles Sanders. Yeah, I'd hate that personally because Miles Sanders on my fantasy team. But
Yeah, yeah.
otherwise, no, I mean, there's plenty
Well,
of
maybe they
places.
swap it though, and that would hurt Miles Sanders still. But perhaps they say you give us McCaffrey, we'll give you Miles Sanders in a first.
See,
Maybe take it. I don't know.
I'm glad you're open to. I think the Panthers fire sale, it makes the most sense.
Cardinals at the Seahawks. Geno Smith just keeps on,
Right.
inspiring the team to win. This totally. I mean, like the Seahawks are what they are. They are a bad. They're kind of like the Falcons, where they're a much harder out than we anticipated. They're gonna fight and claw. Kenneth Walker is getting his opportunity. Seems like
Yeah.
he's going to be a stud for them, the rookie. This said a lot more about the Cardinals, just lack of any cohesion at all to me.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 2-4. I didn't anticipate this. I didn't expect them to be great this year. I think I had them being the 7th seed going into the playoffs. Right now, I have zero faith in this team. And look, you got to start thinking about is Cliff Kingsbury on the hot seat? Is he a guy like they haven't done enough with getting him his quarterback, having great offenses in recent years, not performing up to expectations. They put up 9 points on the Seattle Seahawks in this one. That's just not going to get it done. That's not good enough.
Well, listen, they just signed him to an extension. They just signed the GM to an extension, and they just signed Kyler Murray to a massive contract.
I guess you're kind of stuck,
You're always stuck. They have to figure it out. And now listen, they get Hopkins back, and they add Robbie Anderson, a motivated Robbie Anderson, who is all of a sudden you go from Hollywood Brown as your number one guy to now you have Hopkins and Anderson, and now Hollywood Brown is out. So the Cardinals, I'm going to give them some time, but Kyler Murray is quickly becoming a poster child for why you don't sign a big-time contract for a guy if you're not 100% sold. Because what has Kyler Murray done this year to prove that he is worth – it's a lot like Russell Wilson right now. I mean, those two guys are embarrassing themselves week in and week out with the money they just signed, especially when you see guys like Marcus Mariota and Geno Smith showing that if I'm going to scrap and claw for every snap I can get, and I'm putting up better numbers than these guys. So it's an interesting thing for the Cardinals. And for the Seahawks, yes, I agree with you. They've become way more scrappy than we thought they would, and good for them. I mean, I don't know what next year looks like for the Seahawks right now, but right now they're kind of a fun watch. Them, the Panthers, I mean, the Giants, these are teams we thought would be terrible, but they're fun watches right now. And I'd much rather watch one of them play than Kyler Murray be pouty and weird and small and just getting angry with Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, I think the Cardinals may be in the worst situation of any of the supposedly good teams in the NFL because they are all locked in together. And this is the first year of them being locked in. And they made the playoffs last year, and there is no building off of it. Look back 3 years ago after the Bills made the playoffs for the first year with Josh Allen. Next year, building. Year after that, building. Now, they didn't get as far last year as they lost to Mahomes, but it feels the build. Like we're on the rise, and now we're just plateaued as a good NFL team. You got to expect to be in or near the AFC Championship game. The Cardinals were on this rise, so the way it works, you're supposed to now be they're an NFC Championship game threat. Old quarterbacks across the NFC, young quarterbacks across the NFC. Kyler Murray is just not stepping up. I'd be really, really frustrated if I'm a Cardinals fan right now.
Yeah, it's a brutal spot to be in for sure. And you think you got your franchise quarterback and just not playing well as of right now. The Bills and Chiefs was, what is expected to be the game of the week. And it really was a great game. I thought it was really entertaining despite it being low scoring. But the Bills win 24-20, and this one comes down to a final drive where Mahomes has an opportunity. I would argue it's a pretty bad throw by Mahomes, but also a good play, by the defensive back as well to jump in front and intercept the pass and put this one to bed. But really, it was a signature Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes game where they both were going, score for score after a scoreless first quarter. To go, 10-10 into the break, and then it's 7-7 after 3. And so, very interesting how this one played out. But Josh Allen, gets some of his revenge here in this one. Not a whole lot of takeaways outside of both. These are the two best teams in the league, in my opinion, next to the Eagles. I mean, it's them and the Eagles. And I still take the Chiefs and Bills in a slight tier ahead of the Eagles, but it's close. This was an entertaining watch, and I don't. You could. This one could have gone either way. I think it's
Yeah.
50-50. Chiefs win this one 5 times. Bills win this one 5 times.
Listen, a year ago, we were talking about this game. The Chiefs lost to the Bills in Kansas City, and we said, all right, now it's going to be up for the 1 seed. And neither team went off on the rail to claim the 1 seed. The Titans came back and snuck it. The Bills, if the Bills want to prove to me they're not last year's Bills, they now will go on. They'll carry this with them. They won't lose a weird game to the Jags like they did last year. They won't lose that, that other, who else did they lose to really oddly? That was a low scoring game. Was it the Colts or someone else? I don't remember, but they had some odd moments post that big win against the Chiefs. So listen, we don't need to spend too much time analyzing these teams. You're absolutely right. 2 best quarterbacks, 2 best teams. Both of these teams are on a collision course again to meet in the AFC Championship game. But both these teams, I do think, have a little work to do, and I think they both would benefit from getting the 1 and the 2 seeds. I would love to see Josh Allen in Buffalo against Patrick Mahomes. It's the only way I really feel comfortable betting the Bills to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs right now. So if I put the challenge out to you, Bills, don't slip up. Get control of the AFC, wrap up that 1 seed, and make the Chiefs fans travel to Buffalo through the broken tables in the snow in January and go get yourself to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they certainly seem to be a front runner right
also
now.
Weird, I'll add, it is weird to watch Mahomes make a mistake like that. He just doesn't make those bad throws. It was a bad throw. And I don't know what he said after the game, but he didn't see him. Like it was one of those, he just didn't see him. And that is weird for Patrick Mahomes. It's very weird for Patrick Mahomes in those moments, because we are used to seeing that as fans of teams that have quarterbacks that make mistakes. But for Chiefs fans, I mean, they were stunned a little bit because he just doesn't lose games like that. It's one thing he has a guy who drops it, and it's not his fault the play went wrong. That was Mahomes' fault. He had a chance to win that game, and he didn't see a guy, and the guy made a good play.
He's earned a couple mishaps, so we'll give it to him. The Dallas Cowboys fall on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. Cooper Rush. This was Dak Prescott's favorite game of all season because he got to watch his backup quell any of those rumors of there being a quarterback controversy. Cooper Rush throws 3 interceptions here and certainly doesn't look very good in this performance. Meanwhile, Nick Sirianni fired up on the sidelines, get caught with a couple expletives there. That's what you like to see. He seems to be a really good fit in Philly. I would have never thought that.
I know
at the beginning of last year, but he seems to really be the guy there. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts, helps lead this team in a variety of ways, including with his legs as well. But I just want to read this tweet, and then I'll toss it to you. Brett Coleman on Twitter. He's a great follow. Go check him out. He does a lot of football analysis videos. Pretty funny as well. But he wrote this tweet here. For those wondering, the 6th overall pick that the currently undefeated number 1 seed Eagles have is actually the result of them trading away Carson Wentz. They got the pick from New Orleans for trading down from 16, and they only had the 16 pick because Indy started Wentz for 75% of the snaps last year, and so they were awarded that first when they traded him to Indy. So basically, Howie has traded away Wentz, got rid of the contract, still had a better and cheaper quarterback on a rookie deal, and then parlayed those assets from Wentz into getting A.J. Brown and a 6th overall pick in next year's draft, all while being the best team in the NFC.
Yeah. No, if you're an Eagles fan, you got to keep rooting for New Orleans losses. You got to keep rooting for New Orleans losses. Yeah, I mean, listen, they're in such unique territory, and the Eagles are poised to be maybe the dominant team in the NFC for the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, older quarterbacks and the older teams falling apart. A lot of young teams that just don't feel ready to win yet. And Jalen Hurts feels like he can win on a big stage, even though he hasn't been there compared to the Kirk Cousins of the world. So pumped for the Eagles. Great win for them. And absolutely Dak Prescott. He needed that. Like we all knew he should be the starter and will be the starter. But now there's absolutely no questions. It's, hey, Dak's healthy enough to play. Get him back in there. And congrats to Cooper Rush. He just gave himself a long career. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys, I would say, Dak, you need to be comfortable with this dude being your backup here now for the duration of your contract. I would sign
$40 million.
I would. I mean, if I'm the Cowboys, I would sign Cooper Rush to be Dak Prescott's backup because Dak does not stay healthy consistently enough. So big game. And it all ends, and the week ends tonight with what should maybe be a game, Dan, that I can't believe I'm saying this. I might watch Game 5 baseball over this game.
I'm not very intrigued by the Broncos at the Chargers at this point, and I certainly thought I would have been this offseason.
6 weeks ago, yes.
Chargers haven't been super convincing, and the Broncos obviously have had their issues with Russell Wilson. I would take the Chargers to win this one. They're at home. I think they're the better team as well.
Yeah.
But it could be ugly. It really could be. So
I'm going to roll with the Chargers as well. But you know what? I also am a little concerned in saying that because the Broncos are like that, hurt dog backed into a corner right now. If they have any bite in them, now's the time to bite. I honestly think there's legitimate concerns that the locker room does not like Russell Wilson and that Nathaniel Hackett isn't cut out to handle the responsibilities of being a head coach. I think that's all very, very legitimate for Denver right now. And they have a lot of talent on that team, so they could come out and get ugly. And listen, Chargers are beat up, but they're at home. It's going to be an interesting game. Hopefully it's just a crazy game and there could be fun scoring. Definitely will have it on the main screen, but I will be watching some Yankees Guardians in the Bronx tonight, Game 5. I have my second edition of the Super Bowl playing if you would like that.
Yes, absolutely. Let's hit that up. But before, can I just say this one?
Yeah.
We don't even need to comment necessarily. This is an interesting report here that just came out.
Oh.
A report from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette says that Mitch Trubisky was actually benched against the Jets after a locker room confrontation at halftime with Deontay Johnson. So they
got into it.
And this says multiple sources are have told the Post-Gazette this, which is interesting because, Mitch has shown his frustration in interviews sometimes. You can tell when he's a little agitated, but he's such a good dude. And Deontay has had his moments, certainly. So I can totally see him chirping.
Yeah, I bet he got in him, and Mitch finally let the nice guy down. And maybe, that's probably a good call from Tom at that point to say, listen, if this is what's happened in our locker room, I need to get control and I need to start Kenny. And I need to not lose my locker room. And maybe that's why
I do think Kenny remains the starter if he's healthy.
Absolutely.
I think that's going to happen.
But Mitch will probably start next week, and Mitch and maybe earn back some respect from the locker room. And who knows? I think the Steelers could be one of those teams now. Would it shock you if they rattle off another one or two unexpected wins here after building some momentum? I don't know. First class for the Super Bowl plane as it lands in Philly from New York does not change. Buffalo, Kansas City, and the Eagles. They are your three. They are the only teams right now that I think are capable of winning a Super Bowl. The business class, I took some people out, but I didn't add anyone new. The Bengals, the Bucks, and the Rams. Now, I know you're saying Bucks and Rams. Well, one of these teams, someone has to win the NFC. And right now, the only team I could see winning the NFC is Philly. But Philly's got to play someone in the NFC Championship game. And right now, I trust Stafford and the Rams with McVay and Tom Brady more than I do the Packers, more than I do Kirk Cousins with a rookie coach, more than I do the Niners, who are absolutely beat up right now and can't win in Atlanta. So I trust them more than the Cowboys. I trust them more than the Giants or what other NFC team insert there. And I've removed the Packers because right now I don't trust the Packers at all. I just think Aaron Rodgers is so leaderless that they're falling apart. And then economy class, again, these are teams that will make the playoffs, in my opinion, but I don't think they're any threat to have a run. Dallas, Minnesota, Jets, Giants. I put them in there. Jets and Giants, Ravens, Titans. The Jets and Giants right now, I have to say, they are on pace to make the playoffs. Do I think they could win anything in the playoffs? Probably not. No. But right now, they belong in that. I removed the Packers from and Miami from economy. So the plane is leaving with Buffalo, Kansas City, and Philly unchanged on its way to Pittsburgh next week.
I'm primarily interested in that Miami decision there because I would probably flip the Jets and Miami in that situation.
Well, I just try to show
back. I feel pretty good about it.
I just try to show Jets fans a little love here.
And it's to be fair, the Super Bowl plane is a weekly thing. It's an update as of now, and obviously the Dolphins just lost and they didn't have Tua, so next week it could shift again.
On Hespen Airlines, your seats get shifted very quickly.
Yeah, you actually don't ever get a boarding pass because the seats change so often.
You just get on the plane and I tell you, no, I don't like you anymore. You switch to this guy's boring. His conversation is terrible. You go over there.
The seatbelt sign is never on.
Let me give this Mormon kid who enjoys his mother's friend's company a try up here closer. I want to see what he has to say. Get out of here, Mike McDaniels. Your act's wearing off on me.
There you go. Zach Wilson, a frequenter of Hespen Airlines. I like it. Very good.
Maybe.
Number one source of income there for Hespen Airlines.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Hey, you'll take it. Multi-millionaire right there. All right. That will do it for our Week 6 recap episode here on the Football Lounge. Follow him at Mark Hespen, myself at Dan Basco. Be sure to like our show and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't yet, if you like to watch the show. Otherwise, you can listen to this on any platform that you enjoy to listen to your podcast. But until next week, we'll see you soon.